Hi there, my name is Sherry and I'm a professional learning manager at Quill.org. This is a recording of a webinar introducing Quill's custom content for Pre-AP English 1 and English 2. The URL that you see here, quill.org/preap, will bring you to our page devoted to Pre-AP content on Quill, where you can learn more and create an account and assign this content on Quill. So first of all, there are 2 writing skills surveys to help you identify which sentence level skills from the course framework your students need to practice. Once your students complete a survey, you're going to get recommendations for sentence level practice for each student based on their individual performance. You'll also have the option to assign additional practice on those same skills if you feel your students need more practice. And it's important that you know that at all times, you have the control over what and how much your students practice, and I'll show you that today as well. So where are you going to find all this exciting new content? You're going to start in your pre-AP classroom. You're going to see under that unit tab all of these links, and the last one will be Quill resources. So if I click here, it's going to take me to what we call the landing page, the pre-AP landing page on Quill. This page has an overview of all of the custom pre-AP English content on Quill and links to all that content. And if we scroll down a little, the first thing we'll see are those 2 skill surveys that I mentioned. So each of these skill surveys covers 5 of the 10 key grammar skills from the English 1 and 2 course frameworks. And each survey is going to help you identify which skills your students need to practice the most. Each survey has 12 questions on it and is designed to take about 20-25 minutes. If we go back to where we were, to skill survey 1, we're going to click view. Survey 1 addresses the basics of sentence patterns, so subject, verb, and pronoun antecedent agreement, compound subjects, objects, and predicates, and compound and complex sentences. So let's play through survey 1 a bit so you can get a feel for it. So anytime you're on Quill, when you see this preview button, if you click preview, you'll be taken to the activity and you'll get to see it exactly as students will see it when they take the activity. So the first thing they'll get is this directions page, worth going over with students. We know that students often skip those directions. Let's be honest, so do the adults. So they'll click begin and they'll be brought to the first item on the survey. They'll always have this tracker at the top showing them their progress. They can also always save and exit and save their progress and return to it at another time. And the first few items are fill in the blank items. So we have my new pair of shoes is already dirty, and they'll click submit. Now notice I'm brought to the next item. I didn't get any feedback. Now I thought I said Quill was all about feedback. Well, our skill surveys and our diagnostics are the one exception. Those are the tools on Quill where students won't get any feedback, and that's because they're intended to really be that baseline, really see where are students at the beginning of their work on Quill. But as you'll see today, all of our other activities, they will get feedback. And then I am just going to skip ahead to number 5. We'll be brought to a sentence combining item. So again, we have those simple sentences and students being asked to combine the sentences into one sentence. Survey 2 engages with tools for sentence expansion, so some of the more rigorous strategies, conjunctive adverbs, relative clauses, appositive and participial phrases, parallel structure. And again, all of the skills covered on these 2 surveys come from the Pre-AP English 1 and 2 course frameworks. After students complete a skills survey, Quill will use the results to recommend up to 40 independent practice activities, so students can practice and improve where they have gaps. Throughout these recommended activities, students will receive instant feedback that guides them through the revision process. Now I'll go to a demo account, and what you're seeing here is what we call the teacher dashboard. This is what you'll see once you set up your account with Quill and log in. To get to the survey results and recommendations, you'll click the Student Reports tab and Diagnostics. You can filter by class period, find the survey that you're looking for, and then you'll click View Results and Recommendations. You'll be brought to this first tab, Class Summary, and these circle charts will show you your class's proficiency with each of the concepts covered on the survey. The Student Results tab has information on each student's proficiency with each skill group. You can also click to see more information. This third tab, Practice Recommendations, is the one that you'll want to remember because this is where you can assign the recommended follow-up practice. In this grid, you can see the packs of activities that are available for follow-up practice, and each pack has 4 to 6 activities within it. The asterisks here let you know if a pack is recommended for that individual student. And notice that by default, all of the recommended packs are selected with that check mark. So if you want to assign all of the recommended packs, all you need to do is click that green Assign Activity Packs button in the top right corner, and those will show up in your students' dashboards. Now, if you feel that it's too much to assign all of the packs at once, you can stagger the assignment of these packs. You can click deselect all of those checks will disappear, and maybe you just want to assign the first pack that is recommended for each student. You'll just go through and check those off, and again, click that Assign Activity Packs button. Once you do that, it will change to a check with the word assigned, and you'll know that you've successfully assigned those. Now, if you scroll down on this tab, you'll see this whole class instructions section, and that gives you recommendations for Quill lessons that you can use with your class that cover skills that your whole class needs practice with. Now, Quill lessons are our only live, synchronous, whole class instructional tool, quite different than our other tools. Let's scroll up and just review. There's 2 other sections to this report. There's the Student Responses tab, where you can see your students' actual responses to each item on the survey. And then there's the Questions Analysis tab, where you can see the questions from the survey and your class's average accuracy in answering each question. Now, let's talk a little bit more about these recommended packs that you see listed here. If you click any of these question marks, you'll be brought to that actual packs page. You can see the activities listed here. There are 4. Each activity takes about 10 minutes, and if you hover over an activity, you'll get a little summary of what students are doing there. And you can also access the preview button here to play through the activity just as your students will. And then you also have some other information about what's in this pack, its grade level, standards, etc. Each pack provides scaffolded sequence practice on one of the 5 skills addressed in the survey. So as you can see here, students are starting just combining with the word and then they're moving on to combining with but and so, and then they're putting that all together and making choices about which of those conjunctions are the best to use to combine sentences. So increasing in difficulty. Let's preview this intermediate activity and/or but so one. Once students enter into the activity, they'll be brought to this rules page. Students have a very short summary of the skill that they're working on, and you'll notice that this uses very student-friendly language. We don't use the term conjunctions, for example. We try as much as possible on Quill to use terms that focus on the function so that students can really understand what they're being asked to do. Of course, if you want to use that grammatical terminology with students, you absolutely can do that. And then after that little summary of the strategy, they'll get a model. So a you see, what are they going to see? And then a you write, what are they expected to do with what they see? For this activity, we have several models because we're using several different conjunctions in this activity. And if we press Start Lesson, we'll be taken to the first item. Bats like darkness, they go out at night. I see the conjunctions. In this case, they're called joining words. And my directions are combine the sentences into one sentence, use one of the joining words. So as a student, I might write something like, bats like darkness, but they go out at night. And let's see what I get when I click Get Feedback. Revise your work. But tells that 2 ideas are opposite. Which joining word helps tell why or give a reason? So your student might reread here, look at these options and say, oh, you know what? I really want to say that they go out at night because they like the darkness. So I'm going to use so. Get feedback. Good work. Now correct your punctuation. And now I get a hint. So in my hint, it says connect 2 complete sentences with a comma and one of these words. And I see that so is one of those words. And I also see in the example here that there's a comma before so. So I'm going to add my comma. Have I gotten it now? Good work. Now add a missing period. That's right. I forgot that end punctuation. And now I'm told that's a strong sentence. Now, your students have up to 5 opportunities to get to a strong sentence for each question on the activity. If in the 5 chances they don't get to a strong answer, they will be brought to a multiple choice question to move them along. We don't want them to get too frustrated so they don't have an endless amount of tries. Either way, whether they get the multiple choice or they get to a strong sentence, Either way, they'll be brought to this next page, which is the most popular strong answers. So what they'll see are what are the 3 most popular strong answers to this question on Quill. And in this case, the answers are all pretty similar, but you'll see in some other items that there can be quite a variety there, and we'll talk about how you can use that with students. And always at the bottom, students will have their final answer to compare it to those strong answers. So that is what one of those activities looks like, and I'll just click next so you can see the next one, and you can see it follows the same format. So some things to notice here. Notice that I made several mistakes in my answers, but the feedback was prioritized. I first got feedback on my use, or actually my lack of use, of the correct conjunction. So the feedback will always first focus on the concept that is the focus of that activity, and then it will address things like spelling, punctuation, etc. We also mentioned that 5 attempts, and again, it's not unlimited because we don't want students to get too frustrated. So now let's take a look at a pack that will be recommended to students after they complete Survey 2. And I want you to see here how the rigor does go up with the practice that comes along with Survey 2. And now I want to find the results from Survey 2. So that was the one we were just looking at. I want this one. We'll click View. And I'll see in this I have a much smaller class, but I want to take a look at one of these packs. And we're going to look at the appositive phrases pack. Probably because appositives are one of my favorites. So appositives are such a powerful strategy to teach our students, right? They're a written language structure. They're not a structure that we tend to use very often in speech, but they're all over written text. So very high leverage to teach our students how to use these. Let's try this first one, appositives in the middle one. We'll click preview and we'll get to see what our students will see. Again, we'll first get that preview that only the teachers will see, which has all the items, and you can just click through and see what those are like. But let's try this first one and get a feel for this. So the Congo, so I'm combining and I'm asked to put the describing information in the middle. So let's say I try, the Congo is 3,000 miles long. And the Congo is a river in Africa. If you think about that survey that we tried before and how that student responded, maybe your student continues to respond in this way, where they think, okay, I'll just plop "and" in between these sentences. That should be good enough. And makes sense, right? The feedback acknowledges what the student is doing well. Now try writing your sentence in a different way. Use the hint as an example. And so I'm asked to use this in a different way, combine in a different way, and I look at this hint and I see extra detail about who someone is or what something is can go right after the name of the person or thing. So I take a look at this example and I see, okay, this river in Africa, that description can go right after the Congo. So let me try that. This, I don't need that anymore, and I'll click Get Feedback. Update your punctuation. Use the hint as an example. I look at that hint and I see, that's true. There are commas there that I forgot. I know one teacher used to say that appositives need hugs around them, and those are the commas. I'll click Get Feedback. Oh, and now I need to check my spelling. And I think what that is that I forgot the 0 there. Oh, and now I need to update my capitalization and ending punctuation. And I made it, and now I'm told that's a strong sentence. And again, if I click next, just like with the other activity, I'll get to see those most popular strong answers for this item. I want to just go back to this appositives pack for a moment and talk about a little bit about this pack. So on this pack page, I want you to notice, I talked about how these packs were carefully scaffolded and sequenced. And you can see that in this pack. So notice that we first have 2 activities where students are combining by putting the appositive in the middle. And what we mean by the middle is that the appositive usually comes right after the subject of the sentence. Well, that's the easiest place for students to use an appositive, and it's also the most common place for an appositive to appear in a sentence. So that's where this practice begins. Then students are asked to use an appositive at the beginning of a sentence. So instead of Sherry, comma, an instructional coach, it will be an instructional coach, comma, Sherry, a little bit more difficult. And then finally, students are asked to use an appositive at the end of a sentence, which is even more difficult. So when we say that these packs are scaffolded, that is what we mean. One other thing I want to show you on this pack page. I mentioned that you have options for additional practice. So let's say your students have completed this pack, but you're still seeing that they don't have a handle on appositives. They're still making mistakes with them. Well, you have the option for additional practice. So in each of these packs that goes with the skill surveys, you'll see this section. What if my students need more practice? And there'll be a link to this additional practice pack for the same skill. So if we click here, we're taken to the additional practice pack for appositives. And again, same skill, we're still working on appositives, but all of the content here is different. And so they can get more practice with that skill if you feel they need it. One thing to note here, the only place to find these additional packs is on the page for the original pack. And that's because we did want to make sure that students first got this initial practice before moving on to that additional practice. So again, to find them, you'll just go into that actual pack and scroll to the What If My Students Need More Practice section. So the last piece of this custom offering for Pre-AP English are 20 custom passage-aligned sentence combining activities. Each of these activities is aligned to a unique Pre-AP English 1 text to give your students the opportunity to practice their sentence construction skills in context. It was really important to both College Board and Quill to create activities that were aligned to and reflective of the text that students are reading. We know that writing instruction is best in the context of the learning that students are doing. And we also know that students benefit from writing about what they are learning. And that's why it was important to us to create these passage-aligned activities. Now, the writing featured in these activities models the kind of analytical thinking that we ultimately want to see in students' own writing. And these activities explore a few different aspects of the text. So they explore historical and authorial context, they explore key elements of the plot, and they also will deal with the structure and style of the text. So where do these fit in? Well, we've designed at least one activity to appear in each learning cycle of all 4 instructional units of English 1. So the idea is that this sentence combining practice can be incorporated throughout your lessons. And just to summarize and do the math for you, that's 20 total activities, 5 activities per unit, and at least 1 passage-aligned activity in each learning cycle. So something important to know is that since these activities include details about the text and an analysis of key elements, they're best used to reinforce learning after students have read and discussed the text in class. You don't want to have to be doing spoiler alerts before assigning these. So again, ideally you are assigning these to students after they've read and discussed the text that they align to. So let's see how to find these in pre-AP classrooms. So if we go back there, wherever there is a passage-aligned quill activity for a particular lesson or text, you'll see a link to a quill activity. So imagine we're in Unit 1, Learning Cycle 2, we'll click the little plus, and we've just finished Lesson 1.5, Jim Haynen's What Happened During the Ice Storm, and we see under Partner Resources, we have a link to a quill activity. So if we click there, we'll be brought to that same pre-AP landing page. So I just want to show you what page we're on. You'll recognize it if I scroll up. So this is that same pre-AP landing page that we were on earlier, but we're brought to a highlight of that page, which is the exact activity that aligns to that lesson. So there is a sentence combining activity that aligns to that ice storm lesson and text. And if we click view, we'll be brought to the activity pack for that activity. The activities I've shown you so far were skills-based. So each pack was focused on a particular skill or set of skills. So for example, we looked at the appositives activities, activity pack, right? Everything was focused on appositives. The passage-aligned activities are different. They are open-ended. So students are free to use any grammatically correct method of combining the sentences that they choose. So they might use an appositive, but they might use a subordinated conjunction, or they might use a relative clause. And no matter which method students use to combine, they're going to receive that instant targeted feedback on up to 5 revisions. The other thing to know is that each item on these activities is written to provide opportunities for students to practice those skills from the skills survey and from the course framework. On the left, we'll see a preview of all the items. And if you want to just take a look at those, you'll see that mix of items that are about the plot, items that are about maybe some context for the story, and then items that get at some of the style choices or what the author is doing, if you look at some of the later items. Students will first get a synopsis of the story just to remind them and kind of center them. They'll click Start, and they'll be brought to the first item. So let's try this one. What happened during the ice storm is an example of flash fiction, and flash fiction is a type very short story. So let's say this is what your student writes. They'll click Get Feedback, revise your work, and make sense, but there's a stronger way to join the ideas. Now, if I'm a student in your class and I've already done that appositives practice, I might think, oh, that's right. Instead of using and here, I can put extra detail about who someone is or what something is at the end of a sentence to describe it. So I can make an appositive, if my teachers taught me that word, I might think that, right after flash fiction, because a type of very short story is describing what flash fiction is. So I'm going to delete this and just put that right after. And I'll click Get Feedback. And I'm told, update your punctuation. You need quotation marks around the title of a short story. That's true. Miss L's always telling me that. I'll click Get Feedback. And now I'm also told to update some other punctuation and use the hint as an example. And I see I have that hint again with the appositive. And I see again, I've forgotten that comma that needs to be before the appositive right here. And I'll click Get Feedback, and now I'm told that's a strong sentence. Now, when I click Next here and I go to see those most popular strong answers, here's where you can see some variety. So here's my final answer where I used an appositive, but other people on Quill did not. So some people used which, right? They used a relative clause. There is an appositive here in the second one. And then this person used called flash fiction. So there are all different ways to effectively combine these sentences. And this is something that you can highlight for students when they are looking at this page. It's a nice page to kind of bring their attention to and discuss that variety. So there you get a sense of these. And I'm going to pause here. So, sorry, just pausing for a moment here. So I want to acknowledge that the ideas in these items aren't the students' original ideas. They're not coming up with these ideas about the text, but we are exposing them to the kind of thinking that we want to see reflected in the writing that we do. And now I'm going to skip ahead to the fifth item in this activity, where we have an item that focuses on what the author is doing, that gets to a little bit meatier of a question. So we'll close this one. And we have the sense of danger grows, the pheasant's vulnerability to hunters is revealed, right? What is the author doing with revealing that? So let's say your student writes, the sense of danger grows, and the pheasant's vulnerability to hunters is revealed. Let's see what happens. So again, we're told there's a stronger way to join the ideas. Try using a joining word to show that the pheasant's vulnerability being revealed is what causes the sense of danger to grow. So one of the things you see here is one of my favorite things about Quill, and that is how specific the feedback is. The feedback is very specific to the prompt that the student is responding to. So maybe at this point your student says, okay, and is not the strongest. I'm going to try so. And they click Get Feedback. Revise your work. Reorder the ideas to show that the pheasant's vulnerability being revealed is what makes the sense of danger grow. And this is where your student will realize, oh, I actually have these flip-flopped. Since the pheasant's vulnerability to hunters is revealed, the sense of danger grows. And we click Get Feedback, and we're told that's a strong sentence. And then we'll be brought to the strong answers, and this one you see quite a lot of variety in strong ways that students have combined these sentences. To summarize what you've seen today, you saw those two pre-AP writing skill surveys that focus on the skills called out in the pre-AP course framework. You saw the recommendations that those will generate focused on the skills that your students need to work on. You've also seen some options for additional practice, and you've seen those amazing 20 passage-aligned combining activities to use when you're teaching the text that they align to.
We hope you found this webinar helpful.
Again, Quill.org/preap is the place to go to learn more. You can also explore our Teacher Center, particularly our Getting Started section, where we have several articles specifically about our pre-AP content. If you have further questions, please email support@Quill.org or click the chat icon in the bottom right corner of any page on Quill. Thanks so much for watching.